today we're going to be starting our weaving lesson. We're going to be making a little pouch similar to this. We're going to be weaving on a loom that is double-sided, and it's going to look like this when we're done. If you have a brand new loom, you're going to need to cut the teeth in half. And so just carefully position your scissors to the center and slowly cut down. Just being careful to not cut one of these little guys off. You're going to go through and cut each one in half on both sides. To start, you're just going to check out the loom that you have, see if there are any threads left over from the last weaver that need to be pulled out. Once everything else looks good, then you're going to need to go ahead and write your name on it. I'm going to write my name on both sides because one of these sides is going to get covered up with the weaving, or you can write your name in the middle. And then just erase the other student's name that was on there before. You're going to grab your warping thread. You're going to find the loose end, and we're just going to tape that on there. Now that we have our warp thread taped to our loom, we are going to start warping the loom, is what it's called. So you're going to go through the first little tooth on that. Oh, and here, notice that this is different because it's double-sided. So you're going to go directly underneath of it, and then you're going to go ahead all the way through the back and go to the inside of the tooth. And if you end up with a little knot or something, go ahead and work that out. And then I'm going to keep going, warping my thread through the next available spot, whether it's the part that's been cut in the tooth or the open hole of the loom. And you're just going to go through the back and the front, making sure to keep it tight as you go. You don't want it to be loose. Okay, I've come to the end of my warp thread and I need a little more. I'm not quite done, so I'm going to get another thread and tie a knot. It doesn't really matter the way you tie it. I kind of like that around the two fingers and pull it through, but any knot that you are comfortable with will work. And then I'm just going to keep on going through until the end, and when I get to the last spot that I can do, I'm going to tape it down. And there you have it. You've got a completed loom that's warped on two sides. You're going to go ahead and use a yarn needle and put your thread on the yarn needle and just go ahead and tie it loosely on there just to keep it from falling off. The thread that we weave with is called the Weft Thread, and the lines that we worked with are the lines that created our loom. So we're taking the Weft thread and we are going over, under, just like we normally do with any type of weaving. You're going to pull it through until you have just a small tail left and let that hang out. Make sure not to pull that all the way through. And then you're just going to go ahead and weave over and under through each, all the way across the front. Now that you've reached the end, you're going to flip it over and start weaving on the back. And you're going to go ahead and weave over, under, over, under, over, under. I'm just skipping that first little thread. Now that I've finished on the second side, I'm going to turn it back over to the first side, and I'm going to start weaving. I'm going to check the one before was under, started with under, so I'm going to go over first. So I'm making sure that every time I'm putting the needle through, it's the opposite of the one that was done before it. And then you're going to use your fingers to pull this yarn down. You want a nice tight weave so things don't fall out of your pouch. So in order to get that, we're just going to push down on the yarn as you go. You can really do any knot that you're comfortable with. What you do is you line your old thread and your new thread up against each other so that they're like BFFs. Okay? And then they are going to wrap around two fingers. This will be easier if you use a lot of thread. It's so hard, almost impossible if you have just like a tiny bit of thread. So notice that all of that's like the length of my hand. I have kind of big hands too. So you want to make sure you save a decent amount of yarn for tying your knots. Okay, so notice how these guys are going in front of their loop-de-loop. They're going to go back, and if you do have two fingers, you can just part your two fingers and pop it through the middle. Whoa, let's see if I can do it. Okay, I got it, and now I'm going to start pulling it through. I am hanging on to these guys, or once you pull your two fingers out, you can either just pull tight with both of these, or you can kind of coax this knot up towards the top so you have less wasted yarn, and then pull it tight. Once you have it like this, you're going to take your scissors and trim off the top so that the little tails, the little bunny ears, are a little bit shorter. And then you can just weave like normal. And here's what it looks like when you're tying that same knot on your loom. It would have been better if I had had a little more yarn on for the red color, so it's a little tricky. Then you tie your needle onto the end of the new string and continue weaving.